What's up guys, it's Kekoa and I'm back with another video here. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys the 18 objections that I've actually mastered, how to handle them, and ultimately how to get complete strangers to wire you money from selling things over the internet. So if you do enjoy, make sure to share with a friend. And if you do want to work with myself, as well as any of our coaches here at the Modern SDR, a little bit more closely, then just feel free to book in a free call with our team at the Modern SDR down below. We're going to be walking you through exactly how our 839 plus students are using these sales training frameworks to print money online. So without further ado, hope you enjoy the training and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
All right, y'all, welcome to the 18 Sales Objections Full Handling Guide in our SDR Initiative Sales Objection Masterclass. Now, inside this training, we are going to be going over 16 specific objections here, and then there's going to be 2 or 3 subsection loops that will actually show you exactly how to bring prospects back to either a different objection handling or something along those lines, so you guys can actually close more deals, convert more sales, and make more commission. So I'm super excited to be going through this objection masterclass for you guys here today. You're also going to have full access to this guide down below here in Heartbeat if you are inside of our full training. But pretty much hopping in, there are going to be a few different subsections within this objection handling guide. So the first, we will have price objections here. We are also going to have a lack of need or value. So if a prospect doesn't feel like they actually need or value your service, that will be another objection that they could be having. And then also we will have another one here, which is timing. So a prospect may not want to get started with this particular avenue or your product or service if it's just not a good fit at this time. So we will also be going over that. There is then going to be a partner, authority, and spouse objection that prospects will have. And then lastly, we will have logistics along with trust. Now, all of these objections kind of come hand in hand, and your job as a closer or someone that's actually taking these calls is to isolate which objection a prospect actually has. So as you'll see in this objection handling training, there's going to be multiple times where we'll ask a question, and then let's say a prospect gives you an answer that we're not necessarily prepared for. Well, it's going to be important to always just then ask them another question, which loops back to find the original objection, right? Or to find the actual objection. So pretty much in here, this is what I'm going to be hopping into, and we'll start off with price. Now right here, let's say a prospect says, this is too expensive. Can we do a payment plan? Now, in this particular scenario, a prospect is likely interested, but may have some other objection. So our goal is to tie them down that this solution is in fact the best and they should be ready to go. We just have some sort of, objection or underlying, thing there that is holding them back from moving forward, right? So in this scenario, we're going to be going through something that I call the diffusing stage, rebuttal stage, and exploration stage. Now, there is going to be multiple times where we're using consequence questions along with double consequence questions, which we covered in previous modules here in the Sales Objection Masterclass, or if you are in Modern SDR 3.0, this will just be within the closer module. So if you're in Modern SDR 3.0, you will also be able to see this, but this is also going to be in our Sales Objection Masterclass specific training program, right? So right here, I will say something like, totally understand name. Tell me, if you had all the money in the world, do you feel like this is something that would work for you, right? So right here, most of the times when a prospect says it's too expensive, it's really some other objection that may be holding them back from getting started, whether that's trust, whether they don't fully understand the mechanism, whether they have to talk to their partner or spouse, right? So right here, we're tying them down. Hey, do you feel like this is something that would actually work for you, right? Now, if they say yes, I'm going to say, gotcha. Tell me, why do you feel like this would work for you? Why do you feel like our solution XYZ would work for you? Why is XYZ product or our solution the best route for you, right? So we don't need to ask all 3 of these questions in one go. I might just say, gotcha. Tell me, and why do you feel like this would work for you? And we want to use that inflection point, that tonality of upwards inflection here, right, to handle this objection. So then right here, let's say the prospect says, yeah, XYZ product would be great, etc. And then in this case, I'll say, gotcha. And then I can appreciate money might be the issue from what you told me. How do you think that we can resolve this so you can find the money so you can hit XXX goal, right? So right here, prospects will have some other objection besides money. And our goal during the rebuttal stage is to actually get the prospect to tell the exact objection they have and why they feel that this may or may not work for them specifically, right? So it's very important to understand the rebuttal stage is not us rebutting the prospect. It's us asking a leading question to the prospect so they rebut their own objection, right? So we're getting prospects to close themselves rather than coming off as a sleazy salesperson telling them, hey, you should do our product because XYZ. No, it's asking the question of, hey, why do you feel like our product XYZ would work for you? And then the prospect pitches themselves, right? Rather than you having to pitch them. So I hope that makes sense. Now, next up, right? Let's say the prospect says, we don't have the budget for this right now. I might say, totally understand, John. If you had all the money in the world, do you feel like this is something that would work for you, right? So it's once again tying them down. Hey, is this mechanism going to work for them? Okay, John, that's solid. Tell me, why do you feel like this would work for you, right? So it's very similar to these other price objection here. And then we're going to get into exploration and then a consequence question. And these consequence questions can be used too, depending on other objections. It just kind of where you see this fits in, right? So I can appreciate that money might be the issue from what you told me. I mean, how do you think we can resolve that, John, so you can find the money, so you can get out of XYZ pain and hit XYZ goal? Makes sense, John. So I guess if you don't find the budget here, how will you be able to get out of XYZ goal and into XYZ, or out of XYZ pain and into XYZ goal, right? So that's going to be mainly price and budget objection. Normally it's going to be some other thing where it's a lack of need, lack of value, lack of trust, spouse, partner, etc. So got my coffee here. Gonna get a little bit, but okay. So next one, right? We don't really need this product or service at the moment. Now, if they're on the call, right, they definitely need some sort of help. So it's our goal to elicit, hey, what is missing from this service or product? So we'll diffuse once again. Totally understand, John. Earlier on this call, you mentioned to me that you were trying XYZ solution and it hasn't really gotten you the XYZ results that you were looking for. Is that correct? Right? So we're diffusing the situation. We're getting the prospect to say, hey, my current product or service or my current mechanism or method isn't working, right? So they say yes. And then I'll say, gotcha. I mean, tell me, if you don't mind reminding me, why do you feel like you weren't getting the results you wanted? They're going to go into all the pain that they're experiencing once again, right? And then we'll say, got it. So I guess based on our conversation so far, I mean, were there any hesitations or concerns here for our solution, right? That you wouldn't be able to get out of XYZ pain and into XYZ goal with our solution, right? Makes sense. So I guess if you don't make a change here, or at least find a new product or service, how will you be able to reach your goals of XYZ, right? So once again, we are going back and saying, hey, are there any hesitations or concerns with our product, right, that make you think you can't hit, XYZ goals and get out of XYZ pain? And then we're going to tie back and say, hey, if you don't make a change here, how will you be able to reach your goals of XYZ, right? Now, this is going to be more like B2B right here. This is going to be if they're working with other vendors, but this could still be like a B2C objection. If they're just working with some other program or they're doing something else at the same time. Once again, right, they scheduled a call with you. They opted in for more information. They're there to get help, right? So in this case, we'll say, gotcha, totally understand, name. I mean, how has that vendor been working out for you so far? Got it. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, what really motivated you to even book this call in with me here today? I mean, it sounds like XYZ vendor is going really well for you and you may not even need additional help here. So could you kind of elaborate on that for me? So in this case, this is uncovering the real objection because, they wouldn't have scheduled a call. They wouldn't be taking an hour out of their day to hop on a sales call if they didn't need some sort of help, right? So that's what you got to remember when you're handling these objections. Now, let's say a prospect says this seems too complicated. Gotcha. Totally understand, John. I mean, in your mind, what makes this seem too complicated for you? So then, right, when a prospect says it seems too complicated, it's very broad, right? So we don't want to stutter, oh, hey, here's all the products that can help you. Here's all the features. Prospects don't care. We want to understand what the actual thing is that they're struggling to understand, right? So I say, totally understand, John. I mean, tell me, I guess in your mind, what makes this complicated for you, right? What makes this seem complicated for you? Got it, John. I mean, based on our conversation here so far, do you feel like this is really the keys to the castle to get you to XYZ goals, right? And then we'll hit them with a double rebuttal here, right? Of where, once again, we're getting the prospect to pitch back to us why this would work. Okay, that's solid, John. I mean, tell me, why do you feel like this would work for you? Why do you feel like XYZ solution would work for you? Why is XYZ product the best route, right? And then they uncover the real objection. Okay, next up, right? Lack of perceived value. Let's say someone says, I don't see the value for this in our business. Totally understand, John. I mean, tell me, why do you feel that way, right? And then that's just going to tie back to the same objection. They are going to unravel, hey, this is why I feel that way, right? And then we go in for the close. Lack of features. Your product doesn't have a specific feature that we would need, right? Totally understand, John. I mean, tell me, what would be the ideal feature that you would need? Whatever objection the prospect hits you with next, we'll use other loops on this training to handle. Let's say they want something that's cheaper, or let's say they want more community, or let's say they want more support. So gotcha. I mean, if you had XYZ feature, right? So if you had, more support, more of a community, more of training, do you feel like that's all you would need to help you get out of XYZ pain and into XYZ goal? So our goal with this question right here is understanding, hey, do they just need this solution here that we have in order to reach their goal, or is it something else as well? So we need to really understand, hey, is this the only thing that they're struggling with having in order to want to move forward, right? Now, right here, right, this is going to be a very similar one to these other ones, right? But it's going to be like, hey, we're considering a different solution that seems to fit our needs better. Totally understand, John. I mean, tell me, what would those needs be exactly? How do you feel like those other solutions will fit you better? So notice once again, it's not me telling them, hey, our product's so great because of XYZ. It's, no, how do you feel those solutions will fit you better? So the prospect's going to tell us what they like in a potential solution, right? They're going to tell us what they want and what they love. And then from there, we're able to come back and help them understand, hey, this is how we're actually going to reach XYZ goals with you, right? Now, whatever the objection that the prospect hits with you next, we can use other loops on this training to also handle, right? But I might say, gotcha, I mean, if you had XYZ feature here or XYZ solution here, do you feel like that's all you would need to help you get out of XYZ pain and into XYZ goal, right? Now, here's the next part, right? Timing. This isn't a good time for us. So once again, right, these are going to be a little different objections, but normally when it is a timing objection, it's really trust or something else, right? Maybe they've been scammed in the past. Maybe they don't see this working. But our goal, right, is to actually build urgency with the prospect so they want to move forward. Timing, right? This isn't a good time for us. Totally understand, John. I mean, when do you feel like a good time would be for you? Right? Gotcha, John. So I guess in that time, what would you really be considering in regards to getting started with something like this, right? So there's likely a different objection here that the prospect actually has with your service, which you can use the other loops on this training to handle, right? If it's just waiting, though, we can transition into a consequence question here as well, right? Now the next one, stalling, right? Let's say a prospect says, can you get back to me in a few months? Totally understand, John. I mean, in those few months, what would you really be thinking about? Totally understand, John. I mean, what's the difference between getting started with something like this in a few months versus here today? Gotcha, John. So I guess in those few months, what would you really be considering in regards to all this, right? So right here, we're asking, hey, what would you be thinking about? the prospect's then going to give us their real objection. Totally understand, John. I mean, what's the difference between getting started with something like this in a few months versus here today? They're going to tell you, once again, their objection with wanting to get started here today, right? And then let's say they still want to start in a few months. Then we'll ask, gotcha, I mean, in those few months, what would you really be considering in regards to all of this? So in this case, the prospect is going to give you, once again, the exact objection that they have to not getting started here today and why they want to get started in a month. Right? Thinking. Can I just think about it and get back to you next week? Totally understand, John. I mean, in those few weeks, what would you be thinking about? Right? So once again, this is going to be a very similar way to handle this objection as can you get back to me in a few months? But once again, we'll say, totally understand. I mean, in those few weeks, what would you be thinking about? What's the difference between getting started with something like this, a few months versus here today? I guess in those few months, what would you really be considering into regards to all this, right? Or in that next week. This is in the next week. Gotcha, John. So I guess if we were to wait a few weeks to make this decision, which ultimately, based on our prior conversation, is something you feel like could actually get you out of XYZ pain and moving towards XYZ goals, what happens then? Right? So now this is going to move us into partner, authority, spouse, right? And you can kind of see throughout, this is why, I think we have 15 or 16 objections in here, but we call this the 18 sales objection masterclass. This will pretty much be any objection that you can come into, but all of these are just going to be reframed, or like most of the time the prospect will say a line and it just relates to one of these 16 or 15 ones here. And then you'll notice throughout that conversation, there's going to be other objections that they'll throw in. So it's just pattern recognition of figuring out, hey, right, they just said this thing throughout the conversation. So we need to loop back with this particular objection handling framework, right? So as long as you understand the frameworks here, it's going to be really helpful in identifying these patterns and these objections throughout the sales call so you can fully understand, right? Partner, spouse. Gotcha, John. That's not a problem. I mean, how does your brother or spouse feel about you getting out of XYZ pain and hitting that XYZ goal to take care of, your mom and dad, like you mentioned to me earlier, right? So whatever their goals are, that's what we're plugging into the XYZ pain situation and XYZ goal, right? And we're asking the prospect, hey, how does your brother feel about this, right? How does your brother or spouse feel about you getting out of XYZ pain, right? Now, the rebuttal here is going to be totally makes sense, John. I mean, what happens if you go to your brother or spouse and they don't want you to take care of your family or make more money? What would happen then? Oh, well, I'd probably just do it anyways. Okay, cool. Do you want me to send over the invoice? Right? Now, if they're like, oh, I'd probably have to talk to them, figure it out, then we'll go into a consequence question. Okay, for sure, John. I mean, tell me, if you don't find a faster vehicle than your XYZ situation, so if this is in like a make money offer, we can be like, for sure, John. I mean, if you don't find a faster vehicle than XYZ situation or get your brother's approval, how will you be able to reach XYZ goals so you can take care of your family and spend more time with them? Oh, it's going to be really hard. Well, yeah, it's going to be really hard, of course, right? Logistics, right? I've got to move some funds around. Gotcha, name. Totally understand. I mean, what's the next best step so we can get those funds moved around and get you started with this, right? So right here, sometimes logistically, they literally have to go move funds around, right? This has happened to us a few times where our clients or students were getting started with trust fund money, or they had to move around some investments, things like that. Our goal here is to understand, hey, is it actually they have to move the funds around, or is it another objection that, it was either, hey, I've been scammed in the past, or I don't trust you, or I have to talk to my wife, right? There's so many other things. So we have to diffuse the situation and understand, hey, what's the real objection here, right? So gotcha, name. I mean, totally understand. What's the next best step here so we can get those funds moved around and get you started with this? right? So tell me, John, I mean, if you had the money right here in your account here today, is this something that you would be moving forward with, right? So if you had the money right here in your account, John, I mean, is that something that you would be moving forward with here today? So once again, this is tying them down to, hey, this is the best solution. I just actually need to move my funds around. Once again, we'll go into, tell me, John, why do you feel like this would work for you? Why do you feel like XYZ solution would work for you? Why is XYZ product the best route for you, right? Now, if the prospect is 100% bought in and there's no other objection here besides logistics, move on to this next part, right? Otherwise, we would handle for objections for trust and spouse. So, if there's any hesitation with this rebuttal stage where they're like, no, I'm not sure if it would work, well, then we loop back into handling trust objection, scam objection, partner spouse, right? But if they do feel like this is genuinely the best fit, it's just moving funds around, right? Then we'll go into the next part for exploration and pretty much understanding how we can help them ensure they are able to get the funds, and we can actually set in place an action list to help them get to their goals, right? Cool, John. And I can appreciate that funds might be the issue right now from what you told me. I mean, what would be the next best steps to ensure that you're ready to go with us here when your funds are available, right? I hate with these typos in here, but your funds are available. In terms of savings, crypto, other investments, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, what would you have available right now to get started? So once again, it's really important to actually understand how to explore how much they have set aside to actually do something like this, right? Because we need to understand, hey, do you actually have the money, right? And you're like BSing me, or is it, hey, we have to go find the money, we have to figure this out. Right, so that's ultimately our goal here with the logistics stage. Now, lastly, we are going to be moving on into trust. Now, a lot of this stuff will all relate back together, right? There's going to be loops in here for if, they say, yes, I feel like this is a scam, we're going to explore that more. Or it might just be, yeah, my friends got scammed in the past, but I think it's actually good. Then it might be some other objection, right? So in this case, I'll say trust, right? I've been scammed in the past. Gotcha, John. I mean, I'm really sorry to hear that. Based off our conversation thus far, I mean, do you feel like this would be a scam? So the prospect, I mean, when we put them on the spot like that, they're probably going to be like, well, no, I don't, right? It seems like this would actually be pretty good. Gotcha, John. Why do you feel that way? So once again, that's the rebuttal where the prospect is selling themselves back into the program. But in this case, let's say that the prospect does say that they feel like this would be a scam, right? You talk to them, you show them testimonials, they're like, yeah, this still seems like a scam. Well, in this case, I'll say, gotcha, for sure. I mean, could you elaborate on that? I guess for you, John, what would you really be looking at for in order to view this as something that is legitimate? I mean, do you mind elaborating a bit on what happened to you in the past? Do you feel like the same thing would be happening here? So then it's understanding, hey, what actually happened in the past? How can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? And how can we get you towards XYZ goals? Right? Previous negative experience. I mean, we've tried something similar in the past and it didn't work. Gotcha, John. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that. Based on what you tried in the past, do you feel like this would be a similar experience? Right? Now, there's going to be two routes that could go from here. If a prospect says yes, they feel like this would be a scam, we'll say this instead. Gotcha, for sure, Mr. Prospect. Could you elaborate on that? Right. So we just want to understand more on why they feel this is a scam, and then they're going to spill us their heart, and then we have all of the objections that they could hit us with, right? And we handle those one by one. Oh, it's, I have to talk to my spouse. Oh, I tried these programs. They didn't work. Okay, why is that? So we're just asking questions. That's all sales objection handling is. It's just asking the proper questions and getting the prospect to sell themselves. Right? So I guess for you, John, what would you really be looking for in order to view this as something that would work well for you? I mean, do you mind elaborating a bit on what happened to you in the past? They'll elaborate, and then we can say, gotcha, I mean, do you feel like the same thing would be happening here? Tell me why. Now, if the prospect says no here to the diffusing statement, right? So this is just if they feel like this would be a scam. But then if they say no, then we'll just go back into this loop where it's, tell me, why do you feel like this would work for you? Why would XYZ solution work for you? Why is this the best route, right? So I hope this helped. this has been super beneficial for our sales team, closing more than 7 figures a year right now. Really excited, working towards scaling up that 8-figure mark, just, destroying with these objection handlings. But I hope this was helpful. You guys should be able to have this full guide down below. I believe this will be in Heartbeat. We might have this on a few other channels as well. But if you are interested in taking your sales career to the next level, feel free to apply to work with us as a private client inside Modern SDR 3.0. If you're already in Modern SDR 3.0, feel free to shoot, me or one of the coaches, Patrick, Ryan, Sierra, any of the coaches, any questions you may have in regards to any of this. You can post in the main channels there. That's totally fine. Now, if you're watching this in the Sales Objection Masterclass, which is a separate training, and you do want to apply to work with us as a one-on-one client, feel free to apply down below. You'll be able to hop on with one of our head advisors here at the Modern SDR and understand a little bit more how this works, how you can get started, and then ultimately really just take your skill sets to the next level. So hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.